Welcome back to Newsday here on Arise News. Thank you for staying with us. Pan-Niger Delta leader, that's Edwin Clark, is urging the Delta State Governor Ifeanyi Okowa to provide more details to residents of the state on how the 250 billion naira allocation received from the 13% oil derivation fund for Delta State was spent. At a media briefing in Abuja, Clark claims that despite repeated calls, Governor Okowa has refused to justify the monies released by the federal government to the state. The elder statesman also criticized the Delta State governor for accepting to be the running mate to Atiku Abubakar.
We said that no one, serving governor, past governor, and so forth, should accept running mate position. We did not know that my governor Okowa was diverting the attention of his friends, colleagues, invited them to Asaba, quoted them, entertained them, set up a secretariat whereby the communique was written under his supervision to be given to innocent governor of Ondo State to read, not knowing that the governor was not sincere.
Well, for a reaction to Chief Edwin Clark's call for greater transparency and accountability regarding Delta State's share of the 13% derivation from Governor Okowa, and indeed for an update on the Atiku Okowa presidential campaign, for which he's a spokesman, we are now being joined by Delta State Commissioner for Information and Orientation, Charles Aniagwu. It's great to have you on the program, as always. Now, I'd love to get straight into it. Let's kick off with the politics of it. Good afternoon, Charles. Now, in his letter that he addressed to the governor, Edwin Clark, mentioned a meeting that took place on the 11th of May where there was an alleged gathering of southern leaders, southern governors, and there was a consensus reached that no governor would accept the vice presidential position and that it would be the presidency or nothing. Can you give us some details as to what transpired at this meeting that Edwin Clark referred to in his letter addressed to the governor?
From the onset, Vembai and Cynthia, let me make it clear that we respect our elder statesman for so many reasons. One, he has been around, he has paid his dues, he has had cause to contribute to the growth of our country. He's also an elderly man, and then he's very much qualified to be called an elder statesman. So we respect him on all fronts. And as such, we don't want to join issues with him because we are trained to respect our elders. But for the records, we need to be able to look at the number of issues that he raised in the course of that interface. But let me first place it on record that our elder statesman, a man we have enormous respect for, is first and foremost not on the same platform with us at the moment. And so a number of issues he's raising now, he's raising it from political point of view. He has already made his choice as to what presidential candidate he's going to support, and we do not begrudge him. We believe that it's in exercise of his democratic right. He talked about the meeting in Asaba, where governors across political divide from both the APC and the PDP met. And in that meeting, they reached certain decisions. Of course, remember that it was southern governors. They did not have anybody from the north. And this country will have 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. And so if we are talking about unity, you will need a buy-in of people both from the south and from the north. Now, let me speak specifically on the issue of the PDP, because you cannot take the constitution of the APC to come and run the PDP. The PDP, in making its choice, examined a whole number of things as a party that is not in power at the moment, and as an opposition party. It was in the wisdom of the leaders of the party, meeting through the neck of the party, that it would be better for the party to throw its primary at the presidential level open to all persons across the length and breadth of Nigeria, because it was believed that not doing so may jeopardize the interests of the party and the ability of the party to regain power and indeed right the many wrongs that have been visited on our country in the last 7.5 years, particularly by the ruling APC. And in the wisdom of the leaders of the party, the ticket of the party was thrown open. Delegates converged on Abuja. And in the course of that election, it was very clear that majority of the delegates favored former Vice President Atiku Abubakar to be the one to fly the flag of the party because the party needed to return to power before it can implement a number of lofty ideas that will, of course, trigger some level of development in the country and recover our country. And that having taken place, it became necessary that Chapter 6, Part 1, subsection, that is Section 142 of the Nigerian Constitution needed to be activated. And for the records, that Chapter 6, Part 1, Section 142 of the Nigerian Constitution makes it very clear that for the nomination of a person to the office of the president to become valid, he needs to proceed to nominate a vice president. And by tradition, in this part of the world, persons nominated for that position usually proceed to the other geopolitical divide for the purpose of accomplishing the provision of that Section 142 of the Nigerian Constitution. An article in giving strength to that particular provision proceeded to nominate Okowa, and he gave reasons why he nominated Governor Okowa. One is that Okowa have got the personality of persons who should occupy the office of the president in terms of his candor, in terms of his performance, and of course in terms of his respect for other persons in the other geopolitical divide. We have been talking about our unity. We want to remind our elder statesmen that it is high time we began to talk about as Nigerians and that we cannot place regional demand above nationalistic intentions of everybody. Today, yes, we have a region, we belong to the southern region of the country, but that does not take away the fact that our brothers in the northern region of the country also do have a right to aspire to the #1 position. And so we are urging even all leaders to take steps, to make comments, to take actions that will promote unity rather than taking steps to divide us. Now, at the time that was happening, our elder statesman was supporting Nyesom Wike of Rivers at the level of the primaries. But you must be placed on record that Rivers and Bayelsa belong to the old Rivers State. And the last president on the platform of the PDP before the APC came is in the person of Goodluck Jonathan, who is from the old Rivers. How could you, if at all we are talking about equity, begin to think that the same Rivers would have also produced the next president, without even remembering that our brothers in the southeast also needed to take a shot, if indeed its equity has been canvassed by some of our brothers? But that being the case, remember what I said about the position of the party and the need to throw the ticket open, which of course produced Atiku Abubakar under a very free and fair platform. Except, of course, our leaders, including our elder statesmen, are conversing that we should jettison the provision of Section 142, and in which case we would have abandoned that, in which case the ticket would not have become valid. Or, of course, in line with the tradition, that Atiku now will be denied the opportunity of having a running mate, which of course will invalidate his ticket. In any case, let me advise that whether we are young or old or middle class, the need to preserve the unity of this country is very, very important. And our comment is also very, very important in that regard. More so when individuals are very well respected, like we do have respect for our elder statesman, Edwin Clark. To please take actions and make comments that will unite us, not the ones that will divide us. Okowa did not betray anybody. Okowa, of course, was the one who hosted the southern governors. That does not in any way vitiate the rights of our brothers in the north to also aspire to occupy #1 position. But for me, personally, I think what the president does with his office is much more important than where the president comes from. Because I don't have it in any authority that life has become better for our brothers and sisters in Katsina just because they have their brother as #1. So we want to advise that in every comment, in anything we do, that let's begin to put our country first rather than regionalizing a number of these issues which have not done us anywhere. And let me also quickly remind you, in 2015, when our brother and leader, former President Goodluck Jonathan, was running to return to office, his running mate then is the man called Namadi Sambo. The last time I checked, Namadi Sambo is from the north. At that time, our brothers in the north were also agitating that it was their turn. But nobody had killed Namadi Sambo for supporting our son, Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. And ditto a number of other candidates today. The person of Rabiu Kwankwaso is in this race. He has a running mate from the south. The people in the north, in the south, have not killed his running mate for agreeing to run with Rabiu Kwankwaso and many others. So it's high time we began to take a look at this from the point of nationalism rather than the narrow presence of politics.
Thank you, Mr. Aniagwu. I'm just wondering if you're looking to address the comments by Pa Edwin Clark when it comes to the 250 billion naira, 13% derivation funds. He's basically saying that's being used to develop his own community at the expense of the oil-producing communities. Is that something that you're looking to touch on at this time?
Yes, very well, Cynthia. You know, I said earlier that we do have enormous respect for Edwin Clark as an elder statesman, and we will continue to respect him irrespective of the views he professes. He knows quite well that up to 2019, even before he took this position of supporting another presidential candidate, that he has always commended Governor Okowa for the many giant strides that he has achieved in his administration, including the establishment of a very wonderful technical school in Kiabodo, where Edwin Clark is from. Beyond that, the 250 billion that our leader, Edwin Clark, is talking about is money that has not even been assessed fully. You recall we have briefed the press and said that on account of the shortfalls in terms of remittances from the federal government to states in the Niger Delta, certain reconciliations were carried out, and in one of the tranches, it was obvious that the federal government needed to remit as much as 240 billion to Delta State, due to a number of other states, even if the amount varied. And the federal government made it clear that there was no way they were going to get that kind of funds at once. And so it was agreed that they were going to be making remittances of certain, I think about 4-point-something billion monthly, which of course will amount to 13-point-something billion quarterly. And the federal government was not in a position to give all that money at once. And as a government and as a responsible government, we took steps and said, okay, even if the fund is losing value, we needed to also leave something for the next administration. And as such, we proceeded, having walked through the Executive Council to the State Assembly for the purpose of informing them as to what we have outstanding in the hand of the government that they need to give to us. And that for the Federation, not even the federal government, it was actually the Federation that is making that remittance. We approached the bank for the purpose of having a discount loan, and then 100 billion was in the offer. Initially, we proposed 150, but in the course of time, we brought it down to 100. And we also listed the number of projects that we're going to carry out using these funds so that it can work for our people. Let me report to you that about 7 of those projects have so far been commissioned. One is the Oge floating market. Your station was carried it so much that is in somewhere in the riverine communities in a place called Oge Dimigun in Warri North local government area. We also talked about the leisure park, which was also commissioned by presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar not long ago. We also talked about the film village, also commissioned by presidential candidate of the PDP. We also included the Coca Bridge and interchange, also commissioned by former vice president and presidential candidate of the PDP. We also mentioned a number of technical schools, including the technical school in Asaba. We talked about the mother and child hospital. We talked about advanced diagnosis center. We talked about a lot of bridges. A number of those bridges have been completed. We have also mentioned, as part of the areas where we need to deploy these funds, the effort of the government to also deal with the issues of pension arrears, particularly the grant to local government pensioners. Of course, you know, the local government pensioners worked with the local government, but because we felt that the local government was not in a position now to be able to deal with those issues, we gave them as much as 5 billion naira grant to be able to address some of those. We went ahead to also assist to give some grant to some fund, made some fund available for the State Pension Bureau to be able to also address a number of issues with regard to pension. So far, over 10 billion have been deployed from that funds that were the much we have assessed. Not the 100, it's just about 80 that we have assessed so far. So how on earth will a leader that understands very well where we are begin to allege that we have squandered the money that is not yet in our hand? I wouldn't know where somebody will begin to squander what is not in his possession. So it's just that we're in a political period. Individuals are very free to play politics. But our elder statesman has earned a very big name, a very high level of integrity, not on account of politics, but on account of his patriotism on a number of areas. We will not want a situation where he may want to join all those who want to play politics with everything. Democracy demands that individuals are very free to freely associate. Freedom is one of the major ingredients of democracy. He has exercised his freedom by supporting the presidential candidate other than the one that we are working with. But to progress, to assume that we should not support another or work with another presidential candidate because he has taken a position couldn't have been the source of the pride that we accord him and will continue to accord him as another statesman, not only on the basis of being a debtor, but as somebody who have also paid his dues, and we respect him for that, and we will continue to respect him. So we'll please advise our elder statesman to please think of Nigeria much more than regionalizing a number of these issues and flowing from the prism of regionalism to begin to attack our lofty projects, which he himself have acknowledged in the course of time that we have done so well. Let me also place on record that even in Delta, our elder statesman is supporting a candidate that is not of the PDP. So we do not expect him to begin to pray for us or to begin to support us. But much as that is the case, in line with the integrity that he has, we expect him to be able to say things the way they are and not paint pictures that tend to be colored with some paint that are much more political than flowing from a point of nationalism.
All right, so that all the points are duly noted. Charles Aniagwu, Delta State Commissioner for Information and Orientation, thank you so much for that detailed response to the statements made by Pa Edwin Clark. Thanks for your time. All right, you're watching Newsday. When we return, we'll have Arise News analyst Ifeanyi in to take a look at today's newspapers. Make sure you do stay with us.